Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Tuesday's Rangers Review morning briefing. It's the 13th of August, match day. Rangers in action against Dynamo Kyiv tonight. And myself and Chris Jack are here to talk through all the big Rangers talking points as ever. Chris, no shortage. But you have been up since an ungodly hour, so it must feel like the middle of the afternoon to you.
It's been a busy morning. Lots of life admin, I think we'll call it, to get sorted, and also handing in your car park pass for tonight, which is clearly the most important thing that a man can do at 6:30 in the morning. Turns out our office is very quiet at 6:30 in the morning. I've been in the office very, very, very late over the years. I don't remember ever being in the office at 6:30 in the morning, but we're breaking new ground all the time these days. And also looking forward to the game tonight. Hopefully, I might try and get a wee pre-match nap. I think the players get a wee afternoon snooze, so I think that's good enough. If it's good enough for them, it's good enough for me.
I think that sounds like a wise idea. Just a reminder to everyone as well who's watching along, as you can see on the ticker below, we have that new season sale over the course of the next week. Doesn't last that long. If you're not subscribed to the Rangers Review, you can try us out for a year for £12. Best way to support us. If you like watching the video every single day, the best way to keep the video going, so to speak. All the relevant links for that are in the description. At some way in the show, we'll have a little bit of a discussion about what you get with a Rangers Review subscription. But Chris, big news today, I guess, to talk about, coming out last night. Sky Sports reporting on the future of Janis Hagi, some confirmation of what had been discussed previously, some interesting details as well about the future of Janis Hagi. Janis has been obviously away on loan. He signed a new contract at the club at the tail end of 2022. Sky reporting that he is keen on a Rangers stay. Obviously, if you've looked at his Instagram posts over the last couple of days, that's not been a secret. Philippe Clement was asked about this last week in Lublin, wasn't he, in Poland, and he spoke about the fact that these discussions had taken place at the start of the summer with Janis Hagi about his future with his agents, and therefore the decision was taken then that he wasn't going to be a part of his Rangers squad going forward, so he wouldn't be reintegrated. Also, the news coming out that wage clause, again, that's been something that's been going around in recent days, that wage clause could be a sticking point to, for example, the theory of just put Hagi in for a month until he gets sold while Rangers need those options. Obviously, he's been in good form for the B team. It's hard to judge. It's not the first team level. He did score a hat-trick at the weekend. But Chris, some confirmation there of what I guess people will have been suspecting about Hagi's future. These discussions that took place at the start of the summer, though, where it was decided that he would go and find a new club. Do you think this reaction and this news now is somewhat in response to the type of club that's come in for Hagi? Do you think he's decided laterally that he wants to stay at Rangers? Clearly, from Clement's point of view, I think even if you just look at his answer around this time last week, Hagi isn't a player who he sees as part of his Rangers team, as part of his Rangers future going forward. But he is a bit of a fan favourite as well, so it's always going to be a divisive talking point.
I think we see the comments on the show, it's built up over the last couple of weeks. I think as people have been looking for that creative spark in the Rangers side, looked at the performances of Tom Lawrence in particular playing that number 10 role. There is a danger that Hagi becomes one of these players that the more often he doesn't play, the better the player he becomes in the eyes of many. I think that's happened a few times over the years. I think we know what Hagi's good at. We know what he's not good at, and I think it's the things that he's not good at that are keeping him out of this side at present. He doesn't look dynamic enough. He doesn't look physical enough for me to be as part of a Clement side. Technically, I think he is good enough, but the manager clearly feels that the overall package just isn't there for Janis, and that overall package includes a potential fee and whatever wages he's on. The manager clearly feels that there will be better options out there in the transfer market, which is fine as long as you can then create that space. That's something that I asked him at the press conference yesterday, and he touched on a couple of times. It's fine saying you want to bring in 1, 2, 3 number 10s, but will you still have a number of them already in the squad? These players have to move on before other ones can be brought in. And we have seen this kind of growing groundswell of opinion, almost just give Janis a game, let's go and see what he can do, which I do understand. I still think he's a good player, and I think as you touched on there, he clearly feels at home at Rangers. We had a piece on the site round about the turn of the year, I think, looking at his loan out in Spain. I spoke to a couple of people round about the club and the Hagi camp, and the feeling of he really liked it at Rangers. He felt at home in Glasgow. He enjoyed the support that he got. He enjoyed the pressure. He liked playing for a big club like Rangers. All of that's, I think, is certainly true. But ultimately, if the manager doesn't fancy you and the manager doesn't feel that you're part of the plan, there's only so long you can hold on to that. So I do still think a move for Hagi would be the best thing for Rangers and the best thing for him. But I do understand this clamour almost of just give him a game, just see what he can do, because I do like him as a player and he could be an effective player for Rangers once again. But I think as we've discussed, it almost feels like his Rangers career it's kind of got away from him, and you do feel now it's just too far a journey to get back, unfortunately.
Yeah, a comment here saying, morning all, has Hagi asked to leave? If he has, we have to treat him the same as Cantwell, no second chances. I don't think it's the exact same situation as the Cantwell one, Chris, in that there's been more of a mutual decision that Hagi wants to play minutes. Is he now 26, 25, 26? There's been a lot of misfortune in the last couple of years in his career, and I think he deserves sympathy for that, because he had a really good season when Rangers won the league and wasn't quite as good after before he suffered that injury. I don't think it's quite the same situation as that, but Chris, the key point here is that wage clause. It's not therefore as easy to just put him back into the team, because hypothetically Rangers could say, and we don't know the exact details on the wage clause, but hypothetically Rangers could say, we'll put you back in for X number of games. But if that then triggers something that keeps him at the club, if that triggers something that I guess doesn't work to solve the wage issue, the wage bill issue that Rangers have spent the summer trying to resolve, that is a type of short-term decision that has got them into this situation. They need to think long term. So I don't think it's as simple as just saying put him in for a couple of games. If you listen to what Clement has said about Cantwell, he has given him that second chance, because when Cantwell initially came to him and had that conversation and said, listen, I want to leave, Clement told him to go away and think about it and not make that definitive decision at the moment. So slightly different situations, Chris, but I guess the interesting thing here is at the end of last season, we were talking about this number 10 position and saying, do you know what, there's 101 players in there. You had Lowry, Cantwell, Hagi, Lawrence, Dowell, Lammers. Now you really only have one in the first team picture at the moment, Tom Lawrence, who started 3 games in the week. And I don't think he's done that throughout the entirety of his Rangers career. So from a position being really bloated, now, if Rangers are going to persist with this midfield shape, as I think they are, they need a starting position. They need a starting player in there heading into the season. Not only do they need depth, but I think they need someone to come and be the third member of that midfield alongside Diomande, Barron and Sterling in that other position, Nico Raskin when he gets back, and someone ahead of them in that number 10 position.
There's definitely huge scope and huge room for improvement in terms of the quality. I wrote a piece, I think it was towards the end of the season, maybe just into the summer, looking at that number 10, and you rhymed off the names there. There's not one of them that I would be really disappointed if they moved on for a variety of reasons. I think all of their Rangers careers should come to an end this summer. Again, that's fine saying we'll move these guys on. You can only do that if there's buyers for them. It's been known for some time now that Todd Cantwell is looking for a move. In terms of rumours and in terms of actual proper discussions about a move, it's been very, very quiet. Hagi has been linked with numerous clubs at various times, but Rangers obviously still haven't been able to do a deal to get him out of the club, and that then takes you into likes of Lawrence, likes of Lowry, likes of Kieran Dowell. These guys can be improved on, but they can only be improved on once they've moved on, and that's the risk that Rangers are taking. That's the situation that they find themselves in, unfortunately. There's that many different moving pieces and that many different pieces of a jigsaw. It will take time before it all comes together. As we all know, time is very much of the essence. Now they've got a huge game tonight, going into it with Tom Lawrence as the number 10. In an ideal world, that would not be the case. But Clement and Neil Scoppin, they're not operating in an ideal world right now, and the Hagi situation feeds into that. As you say, it's not a case of we can go and give him 6 games if 6 games then activates this clause in his contract, he's then, we're assuming, on more money. That then makes it harder to then sell him on. So rather than being on X that a club has to match, he's then on Y that a club has to match. That makes it harder potentially to get him out the door. So as much as I do like Hagi as a player, the whole package clearly doesn't fit right for Clermont. I think that's something that can be said about almost everyone in that number 10 position. And going forward, it's an area that Rangers really do have to improve on.
Yeah, we'll get some comments on Hagi. Jonathan Hughes saying Hagi needs time and space in the pitch. He will not, capital not, get that in the SPFL. Jonathan, come on. He isn't the standard and needs to leave. A few more comments on Hagi. Neil saying, for me, Hagi is better than what we have. Thomas saying Hagi was signed as an inverted number 10. We don't use that profile under Clermont. The Blue Yonder, as much as I like and admire Hagi, Chris is right regarding his weakness. And Rangers Journal here with a point. In terms of Hagi, would he not fit with the attack and play seen on Saturday? My thoughts on Hagi is this, and apologies if I've made this point over the past few days, Chris. But my new phrase for the type of player that Clermont wants in an attacking sense is the kind of big space players, right? Players who, when they have a pitch ahead of them, like Václav Černý, like Chefty, we've seen in the past week or so, they thrive. They can carry the ball over big distances. They're better when they're isolated as opposed to when they're playing in combination. If you think of someone like Todd Cantwell, I don't think his best football is going to arrive in a Clermont system. I think he can be effective in a Clermont system, but he's someone who probably wants to play at a bit of a slower pace. He's better in combination with other people because he's not a kind of an explosive dribbler who's going to get the ball out wide and thrive in big spaces. I think he probably thrives when he's in close combination. He can use his brain and work with teammates. And very much you contrast that to what Beale wanted to do with a slower pace of play, freedom for the number 10s. Cantwell had kind of complete autonomy on the pitch. And you compare that to a number 10 in a game style under Clermont where there is a lot more space. He's not as fussed about possession or territory. Therefore, you need your number 10 to carry up the pitch a lot more. Again, we used this example over the weekend, Chris, but I think of someone like Fabio Silva playing that left wing position was not suited at all to what Clermont wanted to do, because he's not someone who can progress the ball individually. And I think that individual point is really, really important because the formation is more structured, because he wants his wide wingers doing their thing as opposed to players having freedom and all moving into the centre of the pitch. So I think on an individual basis, I agree with that comment. We know what Hagi can do, the quality that he has. He's obviously just played for Romania at the Euros. He was a starting player in a couple of those games. But before you get onto the topic of, okay, does he have the ability to be a man-for-man presser off the ball? Is he going to give you that energy there? Is he going to improve what we see at the top end of the pitch at the moment with Rangers, which I think in Dessers is a good presser and he works hard, but neither him or Lawrence are particularly quick players. Yeah. Before we talk about what they do off the ball, Chris, I think you've got to look at what type of player is going to thrive in that number 10 position under Clermont if he keeps that. And for me, that's someone who is at their best playing in big spaces, can progress the ball individually, and doesn't really rely on their teammates to do it. Is that fair? Does that make sense? Because I don't think, if you think of that style of football that Clermont's going to play, I don't think if you were going out to sign a player to be your number 10, that Janis Hagi would necessarily be the profile of player you'd be looking for that style.
No, I think if you look at all the options that we have at 10, you don't see, if they were all playing for different clubs, there would be no clamour for Clermont to go out and sign any of them, because as you say, you would be able to pick the weaknesses in a lot of them. You'd be able to look at Hagi and say good at that, but there's too many negatives there. You'd look at Cantwell and say, yes, he's good as you outlined there, but there's too many negatives there. Lawrence, I think we know the negatives of him. Certainly Dowell. So I don't think if they were playing for anyone else and these names came up, people would go and do their usual scouting on YouTube and such like. And I don't think there'll be a case of we need to go and sign him. He'll be a great player, and that almost sums up Rangers' recruitment over the last couple of seasons. A lot of players within the one area. Nobody that's nailed down that jersey in recent seasons, and it's not been helped by change of style and change of managers, because the squad is it is what it is because of the number of people that have had an input into it. No, Ross Wilson had a big input, but Gio was signing a certain type of player for his particular system. That then changes so much when Michael Beale comes in. That then it doesn't last very long at all, and Clement is then trying to square pegs in round holes rather than round ones and round ones, as you spoke about in terms of Tierney the other day there. So Clement is still trying to tidy up other people's mess, if you like, in terms of the squad. But there's not really been that many number 10s linked over the course of the window, and there must be into 3 figures in terms of names. But in terms of that number 10 profile, are we really sure what Clement is actually looking for, and what he will be able to attract to the club? Also, the highest calibre of player, the highest quality of player possible. These guys aren't going to be easy to find. They're certainly not going to come cheap, and Rangers need a match winner, a game changer in that area. But finding that particular player, and it's also not just one, because one will need a backup. You're potentially looking at a couple out, and I would hope a couple in that number 10 role. And I think that the business that Rangers do in that area, it's going to be so defining in terms of what the rest of the season holds for them. If they get that right, they've got a chance. If they end the window and it's Tom Lawrence plus a Lowry or a Doyle as a backup, I think we all know that that's not going to have enough.
Yeah, the Rangers, I'm just pulling up the squad pass network from the weekend, which some people will like, Chris, some people will not. All this is doing is charting the average passing position of players. Bigger the circle, the higher number of passes they played, the darker the circle, the more dangerous they were in theory of their on-ball value. But if you look at that, it was more of a 4-1-4-1 at the weekend. I didn't really think about that until after the game when I looked at the average position map, as you can see here. So maybe there is a little bit of scope that, because I thought on the ball in the first half, Rangers were much better than we've seen them under Clement at points domestically. So I wonder if off the ball, that number 10, he's going to stick with that press and shape. And we discussed that, the issue with the goal, the breakdown in communication from back to front, why there's that free pass through the midfield. And we've actually got a Rangers Review extra video on that on the channel that I recorded yesterday, that you can go and watch that if that is your type of thing. But I wonder on the ball, Chris, if we're going to see a little bit more of this, more of a number 6 and 2 8s as opposed to 2 number 6s and 1 number 10. We shall see. Let's get to a few more comments as well. A comment here, Chris, someone asking why is no one asked Clement about Danilo at a press conference. That was asked, Paul, I believe last week, Chris, and effectively, we've discussed this in the last few days, but effectively Clement said, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it's easier to put Danilo into a game at the moment where Rangers are winning just because of where he is in his recovery. It's going to take him time to get back. Obviously, he's played in pre-season, but he's not played competitive games so far. And although people, I think, would justifiably have wanted to see him for 10, 15 minutes, especially because Cyril Dessers has played 90 minutes, it's clear that Clement just doesn't think he's quite ready to go into a really competitive game yet. Is that a fair summation of what he said?
I think it would be easier if Rangers were winning games more comfortably, but they've not really looked like winning anything very comfortably over the last couple of weeks. It is an issue for Rangers, though, as you say, because there's so much pressure now on Cyril Dessers, not just to be the man that scored and goal and the man that's there to lead the line. He has to get through the minutes because, again, the manager touched on Hamza Agaman and his situation yesterday, and by the sounds of it, he's getting there. But as we all know, we've got a Champions League game that kicks off in just a few hours, and the only striker that's been brought into the club is not going to be anywhere near it. And that's a problem for Rangers. It's a big risk that Clement has taken. He must have known that that Danilo was going to have to be babysat almost. It was going to have these small steps. Now maybe it's been, I think as Danilo outlined when I spoke to him in Holland, there was days where progress was good, days where progress was bad, days where there was no progress at all. And I think that's probably been the same now that he's back in the first team fold. That was always going to be the case, though. You're not going to get to first day of pre-season, give him a fortnight training, and you can put him straight into the team. When you then sign a man to back up those two, and you know that he's going to take potentially even longer than Danilo, that's a big call for the manager. That's a big risk. Thankfully, we saw last season that Dessers is robust. We know that he can get through the games. We know that he can churn out the minutes. but you're always you're one hamstring, you're one bad challenge, you're one going up for a header and landing awkwardly. All these things that can happen, all the things that Rangers have seen happen over the last couple of seasons, injury wise, they're one of them away to Cyril Dessers from who else he playing through the middle. Who gets that? Who gets
it's
that?
It's a good point tonight, Chris, because hypothetically, and I think this is where, sorry to interrupt you, but I think this is where, Rangers start of the window. I think overall this transfer window, Rangers have made a lot of good decisions because they're thinking long term. They're not just going short term. They're not being reactive. The profile of player they're getting in terms of replacing a lot of aging players with young players, then getting a little bit of experience in. Obviously, it depends on whether you get results. And had Rangers lost last week in Lublin and then we're up against it tonight, then maybe you'd be saying, was that too risky to get so many young players in so quickly? But the striking position, it doesn't feel to me to have been really well managed, not only because tonight you've only got one real striker, fit striker going into the game. And listen, Danilo is fit, he's on the bench, but he's not played many match minutes at all. The question, Chris, is not only if Dessers gets injured, the question is, let's say the game tonight is 2-1 to Dynamo Kiev with 20 minutes to go. Where is your option to kind of stick or twist? Where is your option to change things? Dessers, if you look at the pressing numbers we put out from the weekend, Dessers is right at the top. I think he made 30 pressures, more than any Rangers player. He does a lot of work, and I thought he looked a bit tired towards the end of that game. So that maybe is a bit of valid criticism that Rangers, for what they might be doing well in this window and how they're trying to look long term, you also need to get that balance. And the fact is, at this moment in time, Rangers only really have one fit and available striker going into a few really crucial games over the next few weeks.
I think heading into the last 10-15 minutes in that first leg, I don't think I would have been the only one thinking, why is Danilo not getting a chance? Just to, even if it just asks a slightly different question of the Kiev back four, they'll have known that Dessers was going to start. It was obvious that Dessers was going to start, so they can then prepare for how do we defend against Cyril Dessers? What does that look like? How is he going to interact and link up with other players within the squad? How are Rangers going to set up? How will they play? Danilo offers something, a different option, a different proposition. Even if it was just a case of give him 10 minutes, that's not going to take that much out of him. Fitness-wise, if I thought it would certainly help him. And it would just have asked something different of Kiev. Now, when you get to the final kick of the ball and Dessers then goes and scores the goal, then the manager can say, well, I told you so, and it was the right thing. I stuck with my man because I knew that Dessers would keep getting in that position. He had his chances. I knew that he would get the goal. That's the fine lines when it comes to this level. That's the decision that the manager made. Would Danilo have been in that position to score that goal? You would like to have thought so, because it was a very good cross. You'd like to think that a £6 million striker would have had that instinct to get in that position to potentially score from 5 yards, whatever it was. So you'd like to think he would have been there as well. But it is becoming a bigger issue. You look at the game at the weekend, for example. Normally you would think, well, it's a League Cup tie at home. This is an afternoon or an evening, as it is, for a bit of rotation. Would you be surprised if Cyril Dessers starts on Saturday as well? No matter what happens tonight, would you be surprised if Dessers gets the nod on Saturday? Because it's easier to give Danilo the last 15 if things are going well than it is to start him and say, just try and get through an hour. It's a big leap. The manager speaks a lot about the loading on players and how players get through their schedules and their minutes. It's a big leap to go from very, very little to playing an hour, and they've not been able to build them up and giving them 10 or 15 and then giving them 20 and then giving them half an hour. It's just not been there. So say Dessers starts again on Saturday, and then going into another European game, Dessers has to start because he's the best option. And when is the moment to take him out and put Danilo back in? There's almost not one right now. And that is just being compounded by the Agaman situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, a quick break to just tell people about our new season sale. I mentioned this yesterday, but as mentioned, if you watch us every morning, the best way to support us, the best way to keep the videos going is by subscribing to the website. Couple of nice comments, Chris, coming in about a subscription to the Rangers Review, which you will be happy to read. RFC saying the sub is well worth the money. So many great articles, £12 is insane, which is a nice way to start the day. Chris, I know you started the day slightly earlier, but nonetheless, True Ranger saying, when does the deal end? I believe it is Sunday night, next Sunday night, might be Monday night, but not long to take advantage of that deal. But an idea of what you get, everything from transfer news and exclusive, that's obviously the big focus at this time of the year, to inside tracks on players, inside stories, tactical analysis, data analysis, a lot of sharp opinions, hopefully, as well. But loads of coverage for you every single day of the week, Chris. And £12, we hope that is pretty good value if you've maybe not subscribed to the Rangers Review before and you want to try us out for a year.
Just as you are going through those numbers there, a nice email dropped into our respective inboxes saying it was a record-breaking day for Rangers Review subs yesterday. So that's a lovely way to start the week. It's always nice to see people taking us up on our offers. And you've outlined there exactly what you get. It's a small team, but I would say it's a very good team. I think we try and cover all the bases, both in terms of the website coverage and the video coverage. We've got some ideas of things we can develop over the course of the season as well. And I think we've shown that we're not afraid to try things. We'll do things. We'll put things out there. If they work and people like them, great. If not, we go back to the drawing board and we try again. But the take up on the offer has been great, and the support that we've had over the course of summer, and it's difficult times covering Rangers at some points. It's not always sweetness and light. Unfortunately, there are some difficult moments, but even in those difficult moments, the support that we get on the show and the feedback that we get on the stuff we do on the website is always very much appreciated. So thank you to everyone that's signed up so far. And if you've not, as Josh says, the clock is ticking. So the best £12 that you'll spend this year.
There you go, guaranteed by Chris Jack. All the relevant links are in the description if you want to take that offer up, £12 for a year of the Rangers Review. Chris, let's before we finish this show, talk about our team. We're in complete agreement, 11 for 11. I think on tonight's team, Butler in the goals, Tavernier, Suter, Proper and Ridvan. Obviously, Liam Balogun is an injury doubt, so unlikely he's going to play. Sterling, Barron and Diomande in the middle. That's the midfield three that Clermont ended Saturday with. Will he start with that same one again? I'm not so sure, but I think it would be the right decision given that Lawrence has played 3 games in a row. Dujon Sterling, I think you want him in that midfield area tonight. Cherney has to start on the right. He played 55 minutes at the weekend. You'd imagine that was with an eye to Tuesday night. Clermont wasn't giving anything away post-match. Chefty, again, didn't play at the weekend. You'd imagine that's with an eye to tonight's game. Cyril Dessers, as discussed, is going to be the main player up top. The only areas I see there being a bit of deviation in Clermont's team tonight, Chris, is perhaps central midfield if Tom Lawrence does start. But you'd imagine that, I think, as you said in your predicted lineups, you can't leave anything. As much as you've got a balanced risk and reward with loading players, etc., you can't come away from Hampden tonight thinking, what if Rangers had started their strongest team? What if Rangers had done this? Now, as we saw in Lublin, sometimes keeping options on the bench and playing a 90-minute game and being stronger in the second half, sometimes that can work. I think that dynamic is slightly different tonight, though, Chris, because it's a home crowd. It's a home crowd that is going to be in a new atmosphere, a new environment for a European game. I think Clermont needs to go with the strongest team that he has available, and tonight I think that is the starting 11 that is the strongest.
I think the manager spoke about it on Saturday, mentioned it again, it's pre-match presser yesterday, this Hampden factor rather than the Ibrox factor. He spoke about the fans getting behind the team and the fans playing their part and them creating this atmosphere to try and make Hampden feel like Ibrox on a European night. A lot of that will come from the way that Rangers start and the way that Rangers set up. If people don't like the 11 names that are read out post-match, I think that will take a wee bit off the atmosphere already. If Scott Wright, for example, starts, or McCausland starts, or I think you would see people not go into their shells a wee bit, but I think it would just take the edge off it a wee bit. Rangers need to be on the front foot. Rangers have to look and feel like a side that's going out to win the game, not a side that's just going out to try and sneak a 1-0 and get through. I think there was enough in the game last week, as well as Kiev played in spells and looked dangerous in spells. There was enough there for Rangers to suggest that this is a game they can go and win. We know that We know the prize that's on offer. We know what it could potentially lead to. It's not a game for managing players and just trying to get through it. And if we win 1-0, but the performance isn't great, well, at least we're through. Yes, getting through is the most important thing, but it's a real chance for Rangers to try and make a bit of a statement tonight, and you're only going to do that with your best players on the park.
Absolutely right. We'll leave it there. Chris and I will be live reacting to the team, whatever it may be, about an hour or so before kickoff at Hampden. We'll have loads of coverage coming for you over the next few days as well, with the football coming thick and fast. Remember, all the subscription links are in the description below. Until then, thank you very much for joining us. We'll speak to you tonight. Have a good day until then, and speak to you.